Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. It's a beautiful day here in Portland, Oregon. I am enjoying my wind chimes, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the roses and all of the songbirds and pollinators that are out, and also enjoying spending time in the garden with my family. And you know, I've realized that owning our home and owning a home that is just for our nuclear family is a tremendous amount of privilege. That many people in my neighborhood and throughout Portland are looking at the housing market and realizing they will never be able to afford a home. In fact, when in my neighborhood we're looking at homes that need a tremendous amount of work, like plumbing and electrical all has to be updated, oil tanks have to be decommissioned, the house needs a tremendous amount of, basic repairs done, and it's still going for $600,000. I see why folks are absolutely despairing. And as a parent of 4 children, I sometimes despair. How are my kids ever going to be able to afford a home? I don't want to be down in the dumps. My friend Shelly knows that I tend to be kind of a hopeless optimist, and she kind of razzes me for that because I always want to see what the solution is, what the way forward is, and dream and hope for the way forward. And one of the good things that is coming out of having a housing crisis and drastically unaffordable costs of housing, which is in many ways caused by developers being able to purchase land and homes at prices for which regular working folks cannot outcompete. That's a whole other topic. My feelings on development in Portland and throughout America and its unsustainability are a whole other topic. However, I think there is kind of a silver lining to the drastically inflated cost of homes in America. And that is that it forces people to be creative and find solutions. Ideally, yes, homes should not cost what they are costing, right? People should be able to afford.
What? Where are my clothes?
They're your new clothes? As the parent of 4 kids, I worry a lot about how they're going to be able to afford housing in the future. My 20-year-old and 18-year-old still live at home while they go to school because that is the most sustainable and affordable option. And also, we all like each other. They're not in any hurry to leave, and I'm not in any hurry to kick them out, especially when renting a 1-bedroom apartment would be $1,600 a month. That doesn't make any sense for us to divide and therefore multiply our expenses. Dividing your household means multiplying your expenses. And that doesn't make any sense for us. So when we think in that mindset, right, and it can be really easy to get down, to get frustrated, to feel hopeless about the housing situation in America. But at the end of the day, I oscillate back toward optimism. I oscillate back toward hope, focused on a solution mentality, a way that is looking how we can move forward, right? A focus on how do we fix things, or how do we be creative in designing solutions that work. And one solution that I have seen come up again and again in the past few years to address the high cost of housing is the idea of a Mommune, or the idea of friends buying houses together. So I want to talk about that for a few minutes today because it seems like a very permaculture-y type solution. Now, obviously, this is a solution born out of necessity. And I find that when we face hard times, at least for my family personally, and I think there's some historical precedent for that, when folks face dauntingly hard situations, our wonderful human creative brains start looking for solutions, start looking for a way to thrive in the midst of adversity. And I think when we look at Mommunes, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing folks who are determined to thrive and actually repair some of the harm that has been done by the way that our society works through the solutions that they are crafting. So what is a Mommune, and why is it a good idea? And why is it something that maybe, while born out of necessity, is an idea that we all should embrace? Even if we had affordable housing for everybody, it's a really good idea. There's a lot of pluses to it, and it addresses a lot of the greater systemic issues in our culture. So let's dive in for a moment here. So Mommunes are, a term you may or may not enjoy very much and may or may not want to use. Co-housing is another term. But Mommunes are basically like women who've gone through a divorce and are still raising their children and have primary custody of their children, buying houses together and sharing the housekeeping, the cost of housing, and the childcare obligations that they are faced with, right? So it is that pooling of resources. So when you look at a divorce, you are looking again at splitting a household and increasing expenses. Mommunes take that reality and they say, actually, we don't want to bear that expense. We're already going through a lot of stress in our lives, and we want to pool our resources back up, reduce expenses, reduce workload. And so Mommunes have been a way that when you're looking at a housing market where, like in Portland, a starter home can easily cost you $600,000, you're looking at folks pooling their resources and therefore reducing their expenses. I've talked in the past about situations like Blueberry co-housing here in Portland, where friends buy houses all next to each other to support each other and create a little community, but everyone has their individual home, right? This is sort of the next step in evolution from that, which is saying it's no longer feasible for each of us to own our individual homes, but we also long for community. Part of the problem of having single family dwellings all separated by fencing and, that kind of division of resources is that we lose a sense of community. I've talked in the past about how being a homemaker can be really lonely in America because folks aren't really present in the neighborhood during the workday anymore. Folks commute out of the neighborhood. And you lose that kind of sense of community that we had in previous generations, even though there were lots of other problems with our culture in previous generations. But when you have a Mommune situation, or you have folks who are intentionally building community around their housing, you are crafting a solution to that loneliness, and you are creating connection and relationships that not only feed who we are as people, because we are communal creatures, we are folks who I think, and I believe, as much as it can be hard to be in community and have relationships, being a human and relating to other humans and, interacting with them when we all have our own individual trauma that we may or may not be working through, and folks may have, ways of interacting that are not always optimally healthy. That can be really stressful, but I think even though the temptation can be to draw back and recede from community because of our trauma, the reality is that we are communal people, and that isolation only amplifies the trauma that we're experiencing. So when you have a situation for co-housing, and that's why a lot of people do co-housing, is because they want that intimate sense of community connection. Not everybody in your co-housing has to be your best friend. It doesn't have to be a Mommune where you buy a house with your best buddies. But you want to intentionally work together, live together, and support each other. So there's the division of labor that comes with the economy of scale of having more people in one housing situation or in a cluster of houses. There is the increase in community. There is the reduction of expenses. And I think that's where you get what the individual houses of somewhere like Blueberry co-housing, or somewhere like those intentionally designed communities like Cully Green and Cully Grove, that you don't have. With those, you often end up spending more or the same amount because you're essentially having a single dwelling. When folks are sharing one house, obviously your expenses are split, right? So it becomes more affordable. And I'm going to put affordable in quotes because what you are paying to share a house is probably more than what you ideally should be paying to have your own home. So when I look at these situations where folks are saying, we're facing a very high cost of housing, I think Fair Companies did a video on this quite a while ago, and I was really inspired by it, where some friends bought an apartment building in the Bay Area in order to afford housing and live together and have community. Those kind of creative solutions that living in late stage capitalism, living in an untenable situation, have prompted in us. Those kind of creative solutions are something that has all of these ripple effects beyond saving money, beyond saying the only way I can afford to put a roof over my head is to share that roof with another single family unit, right? To share that roof with perhaps 2 or 3 or 4 other folks. Maybe you are an individual and you want to buy a house, a 3-bedroom house with 2 of your besties, right? There's the reduction in expenses, but you have that instant community that I think we all long for. I'm going to link to a bunch of articles down below if you're interested more on the ins and outs, how you get a mortgage, how you maneuver all of that, how you navigate the situation of buying a house with someone. But I do want to read the title from this article from Insider that I will, again, link below. The new American dream is buying a house with friends. It's a co-parenting model, a co-economy model, and it's a really great friendship and support model. And I think that really sums up the benefits of Mommunes. When we live with other people and we have community, it forces us to work on our communication. It forces us to learn conflict resolution. As a parent of 4 children, 6 of us living in a small house, conflict resolution and healthy communication are things we have had to learn out of necessity. When we're looking at the unsustainability of housing in America, the situation where corporations are outcompeting individuals, housing costs are skyrocketing, I'm so encouraged to see folks finding a way forward, finding a solution that, while it may not look ideal in some regards, I think it brings a whole slew of benefits that maybe folks can't even anticipate. And I really think of the way that the reality of our society has fractured us as individuals, has fractured the way we relate to each other, has pitted neighbor against neighbor, has created a culture of systemic loneliness for a lot of people. I'm hopeful that perhaps this situation of shared housing is going to be a way forward, and a way that is healing for a lot of people, and a way that says, you know what, the system is really broken, but human beings are ingenious folks who can find solutions. While we are faced with the reality of we may not know how to repair the whole system, we can find our own little pockets of solutions. So if you live in a Mommune or one of these other co-housing situations, shared housing, I would love to hear about it down below. I think it's such a beautiful reality. And again, don't forget to check out the ways down below that not only you can support the work of this channel, but you can kind of dive in and investigate a little bit more of this trend. I'll be back real soon from my permaculture garden here in Portland, Oregon. Thanks.